The beggar who owned the building. Sarah was a successful real estate broker. She made six figures a year. She drove a Tesla. She lived in a penthouse. She had everything, but she had no soul. Every day, she stepped over homeless people on her way to the office. Every day, she saw them and looked away. Every day, she told herself it wasn't her problem. Then one day, a beggar changed everything. He was sitting outside her office building. Same spot, every single day, for 3 years. Sarah had seen him so many times she had stopped seeing him at all. He was just part of the landscape, like a fire hydrant or a trash can. His name was James, but Sarah didn't know that. She had never asked. One morning, James was gone. Sarah didn't notice for 2 weeks. When she finally did notice, she felt something strange. Not guilt, exactly. More like the absence of something familiar. The routine had been broken. Sarah found out what happened. James had died. Heart attack. He had been sitting outside her building, and he had died, and no one had even called an ambulance for 3 days because no one noticed he wasn't moving. Something in Sarah cracked. That night, she went home and couldn't sleep. She thought about James. She thought about how she had walked past him thousands of times and never once seen him as human. She thought about how he had died alone, ignored by everyone, including her. She made a decision that night. She was going to change. She was going to be different. She was going to actually see the people around her. The next day, she started volunteering at a homeless shelter. She used her real estate knowledge to help homeless people find housing. She spent her weekends doing this. She gave money, she gave time, she gave attention, and slowly her life transformed. She became happier, she became more fulfilled. She became the person she had always wanted to be but never knew how. But here's where the story takes a turn. 2 years later, Sarah received a letter. It was from a lawyer. "Dear Ms. Sarah," it read, "I am writing to inform you that you have been named in the will of James Mitchell. He has left you his entire estate. This includes a commercial building valued at $47 million. Sarah couldn't believe it. James owned a building? James, the beggar she had stepped over thousands of times, was a millionaire. Sarah went to the lawyer's office to understand what was happening. The lawyer explained. James Mitchell was a real estate investor. He owned several properties throughout the city. 30 years ago, he had a mental health crisis and lost everything: his business, his family, his mind. He ended up on the streets, but he never sold his primary property. He kept it in his name, hoping one day to recover and rebuild. He never recovered, but he watched you, Ms. Sarah. For 3 years, he watched you walk past him every day, and then, one day, he saw you stop. He saw you really look at him. He saw you change. Before he died, he updated his will. He left his entire estate to you, not because he knew you, but because he saw in you the possibility of redemption. He believed that if you could change, if you could become someone who cared about the invisible people, then maybe you would use his money to help others like him. He left you a $47 million building and a responsibility. He wanted you to transform that building into something that would help people, something that would give homeless people dignity and opportunity. He left you everything because he believed in your potential to do good. Sarah sat there in shock. A homeless man had left her $47 million. The man she had ignored for 3 years had given her the means to change the world. But the story doesn't end there. When Sarah took control of the building, she discovered something else. James had left detailed instructions. He had left blueprints for what he wanted the building to become. It was a shelter, but not just any shelter. It was a sanctuary. It had job training programs. It had mental health services. It had counseling. It had housing. It had dignity. James had spent 30 years planning this, living on the streets, designing in his mind the thing he wished had existed for him, and he had left it all for Sarah to build. Sarah quit her real estate brokerage. She cashed out her retirement. She poured everything into transforming James's building into his dream. It took 2 years, but when it opened, it changed the city. The building became the most comprehensive homeless support center in the country. It didn't just give people a place to sleep. It gave them hope. It gave them tools. It gave them a path back to stability, and it worked. Hundreds of people went through the program and rebuilt their lives. Years later, Sarah gave an interview. The reporter asked her, "How did it feel to receive $47 million from a homeless man?" Sarah thought for a moment and said, "It felt like grace. It felt like the universe saying, 'You changed, now change the world.' But more than that, it felt like validation. James saw potential in me before I saw it in myself. He believed that I could do good, even when I was at my worst, and that belief transformed my life." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't changed?" the reporter asked. Sarah nodded. "Every single day. If I hadn't made that decision to volunteer, if I hadn't started seeing homeless people as human beings, I would never have received that letter. James would have left his money to charity or to someone else entirely, but he left it to me because he saw something in me. He saw my potential for good." That's what I tell people now. We all have the potential to change. We all have the ability to transform our lives and the lives of others. But it requires one thing. We have to start seeing the invisible people. We have to start acknowledging the humanity in everyone around us. James was invisible for 30 years, but he was watching, he was waiting, and when he saw that I had finally started to see, he gave me everything. That's the real story. It's not about the money. It's about what we see when we truly look at another human being. The interview went viral. Millions of people watched it. Millions of people started volunteering. Millions of people started seeing the invisible people in their own cities. Homeless shelters received record donations. Job training programs expanded. Mental health services grew, all because one man, invisible for 30 years, believed in the possibility of human transformation, all because one woman finally stopped looking away. The building became known as the James Mitchell Center for Human Dignity. And Sarah, the real estate broker who had everything, finally had something that mattered. She had purpose. She had redemption. She had the knowledge that she had changed the world, not through her own ambition, but through the grace of a homeless man who had never stopped believing in humanity. And the lessons spread around the world. You never know who is watching. You never know whose life you're impacting. You never know when a single act of kindness might change everything. The invisible. People are watching, and someday they might change your life in ways you never imagined.